Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. It's not on it. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3, 4. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3, 4. Testing. There we go.
Oh, it's on there, it's working
Now we're
now.
going.
It is working now, there's no doubt.
Yes, good. Now we're going.
You can see it going up and down as we're talking.
Yeah,
So it is
and the
working.
lights on. Good. Okay. So tell me your earliest memory of Ballyhurning.
The earliest memory I have is when I must have been probably about 5-ish. And I remember being down playing in the sand. It was lovely weather, beautiful sunny weather. And I remember I got a new pullover or something, and Andrew was wearing it, and I wasn't happy, but I wasn't too unhappy about it. And I mean, Andrew was in the pushchair at the time. So, and I remember one of the things he used to do is if we got money, say 1 or 2 pence, we used to go and bury it in the sand. And I don't know why we done it, but it was one of them things we done. So that's about the earliest. But the other one I can remember, and it has to be around that time, or maybe even before, of walking with my father down towards the back of the house and looking out towards the Atlantic. I must have been, I couldn't have been any more than over 4, because my father was still walking at the time, and he was. We were looking out towards the sea, and I remember him being sitting on the stone, and he had the walking stick and his hat on, and I was playing around it a little. I remember it was a kind of a dullish day, but that's the last thing I can remember of him. Of that.
What was he like, your father?
Well, to me at that time he was very well, how would you put it? He was very placid type man, the bit I remember. But then at that time I was only, as I said, he died before I was actually 5 years old. So.
So you don't. And tell me about your mother. What? How would you remember her? What was she like?
Actually, she was very good. There's one thing I was telling Eileen, and she didn't believe. Well, she didn't even remember it. When I was. Must have been maybe 7 or 8 at the time, and I remember me and Eileen must have fallen out, and it seems I hit her. So she took me aside, and she didn't actually get cross or anything, just sat me down. She said, "A man never hits a woman." She said ever so quietly. She said, "That's one of the things you don't do in life." And one of the other things I remember as well, I used to have an awful habit of singing some songs that I've got. They weren't what you would call brilliant. I remember walking up the hill on a lovely summer's evening, and them all going to church and me singing this at the top of my voice. And anyhow, also there was quite a few swear words out. So when I come back, she took me in and she says, when you were on the hill, she says, singing, she said, it wasn't very nice. She said, there was a lot of people, she said, walking to mass. And she said, the man doesn't have to show himself off by swearing. And from that day, I think on, I never swore, because years later I remember myself and Mick Dorian, we were loading potatoes onto a cart, horse and cart, and I caught my hand in the side, and I went round and oh, and I swore, and Mick almost laid down laughing. He said, that's the first time, he said, in my life I heard you say it.
Yes.
And that was from the time she told me. So that was one of the things about her that was, really, she really got a point across without being anywhere aggressive doing it. She used to just talk gently, but she put a point across that stuck. That was the thing about it. So.
And I think you were 10, were you, when she died?
Yes, I would have been 10, and she died in I think it was it the September? Yeah, she died in the September, and I'd have been 10 in the October. So I was just almost.
And you were with her when? Can you tell me the story?
Yeah, she made up her mind she wanted to go back over to Derryhasson, over to Downings to her father's place. So anyhow, we got in freely, come up, and he drove us over there. And went over, it was normal evening, all sitting round. She had a couple of bottles of Guinness that night, I remember, and everything was, people come in to see it, and everything was great, no problem. Anyhow, we went to bed. I was sleeping with her, and went to bed, and we slept in the room. It's on the left-hand side as you walk in. And I don't know what time, but we must have been in bed for a bit because I was sound asleep, and there was this almighty knock on the table, and everybody rushed in, and then my grandfather picked me up and took me out and put me into a bed in the back room, and I was in there then for the rest of the night, and when I got up in the morning they told me she died during the night. So that was how that happened, which was a bit, well, I was only young, and it did really shake me at the time, because I wouldn't go back into the house after it, onto the family that I'd arrived from Fanet. And I just sat out on the steps down below the house, just waiting on them to come. So I remember that part of it, very vivid, you know what I mean. And the other thing, I think I told you another about when Eddie died, no, it was Andrew. Me going up and feeling the back of his neck to see was he hot or cold, because I see the other foot. That's another memory of it which is hard to come by at times. You know, it's very.
And did Andrew have meningitis?
Yeah, he had meningitis.
And tell me, was he sick for very long, or tell
He
me
was
about it?
he was sick for a while, not for very long. No, he was sick for a while, but there was no cure whatsoever at that time. There was nothing we could do for him, and he did suffer. But his head, he was banging it against the pillar like that. It was one of them. It was terrible at the time, but you just got hardened into it, I suppose. That was the way it was.
But you went into the room and you felt him. Like, tell me what you.
Yeah, after when he was laid out, I went in, and I couldn't believe he was dead. I remember putting my fingers in just to see the back of his neck if he was still warm. You know what I mean? And it was something I done. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I've seen somebody else doing it. I don't know. And I remember that. I remember also little Eddie when he died. He was in the cradle in the house, and he was hardly fit to speak before he died. Like he was. But I don't know exactly what Eddie died from. But I remember it happening like. So it was hard then. It was everything had completely gone at the time. There was nothing left. So actually, in a way, maybe it was God's will that my mother died, so the rest of us went into better place, because Ballyhernan was finished at that time.
And what happened at Ballyhernan after your father died? I mean, you were very young, weren't you?
Well, after he died, I don't know an awful lot about him, only what Humphrey told me, because I don't remember. I remember Sheila and Annie coming home. I was only little and running down to meet them and that, and I remember Humphrey coming home. I don't think he made it because he was working in, I think, some part of Scotland, and he didn't realise she'd died at the time. And then he came home, and he took us all over to Scotland after that. We remember locking the house on that morning and walking away, turning the key in the door. But it didn't have that much significance at the time, you know what I mean?
But you were so little.
I was so little that I was just coming up to 10 years, so you didn't pick up what was happening as much. And I was an awful person for straying away. I'd be up through the fields after the corn craker. I'd be straying all over the place, and they were away looking for me. Even when I come off the boat in Scotland, they were away looking for me. And when they come out, I was sitting on the capstan where the boat was tied to, waiting on them to come out. I was very adventurous like that. Do anything on my own. So
So Humphrey took you and Chrissy to... Where
Humphrey-
did you go in Scotland?
We went to Edinburgh to my aunt. I went to my Aunt Ellen in Edinburgh, and Chrissy went to Aunt Mary in Scotland. And they had a family. Helen, my Aunt Ellen and her husband, Peter Rogers. They had a family as well, they had children, and they were going to work. And so we were kind of looking after they're helping to look after the family, like when they were small. But while I was at school, I was okay. I didn't. Edinburgh was okay, but once the summer holiday come, I hated it. And as soon as I got the chance, I was back in Thanet again.
Did Humphrey take you back, or how did you get back?
We come back with Helen, and they come back on holidays to my grandfather's. So myself and Chrissy said that we were going over to Thanet to visit. Because I used to go in and out to Rosie's an awful lot when I was at school, and Chrissy used to go in and out. So we went back, and my grandfather asked me to stop in Derryhassam. And believe it, I didn't want to stop because I didn't like the Gaelic. It was all Gaelic spoken in the house. But when we came over to Dorian's, I asked, and Rosie was pleased to have me, I think, because... and then just... And Chrissy at that time went to Newton Cunningham, and she stayed with my Aunt Hannah. So she stayed there till she was old enough to leave to go away. And I stayed until I was 18 and a half. I was as happy as anything in Rosie's. I loved it. I went from one good mother into another good mother, into a brilliant mother. That was just exactly how that happened. Which I could not, I don't even have a bad memory. Not in the least on that.
With Mickey and Rosie.
With Mickey and Rosie. Mickey was brilliant, and Bryony. I used to love working on the land there, and I used to work on Ballykernan. I worked on Ballykernan when I was in Dorian's. I used to take the horses over, and if there was something they'd doing, I would do it on the land when I was 14 and 15 and 16. And we used to take the grazing on there. The Dorians took the grazing. We used to feed the cattle on there. So it was home from home because I was working on the house. I used to go in and out to the house as well because the house was in good repair when I went back. I mean, we left in 1948 and I was back in Dorian's in the summer of 1949. And from 1940, but then it started to deteriorate after that. And Humphrey had sold the roof on the barn before we left. And I know the house now where the slates is on is in Kerrykeel. It's still there, and the slates are still on that house.
Is that from the house or from the barn?
Oh, from the barn. There were blue Bangor slates on the barn, and they were sold to that person, and they've got them on their house now, still in Kerrykeel.
Really? Yeah.
So.
And tell me, you were telling me the other day about your dog Jack.
Oh yeah, Jack was. He was one of them. He wouldn't let anybody touch any of the kids. Nobody could smack them. He would growl, and. When we left the house, funny thing is about nobody thought about the dog because I suppose we were more interested in what was happening. And after that, we went down to Johnny Friel's, Johnny, Aunt Cassie's house. Oh. So he went down there, and he used to go down at night, during the day, but then at night he'd wander back up and he'd sleep at the door of the house all night, and then he'd go back down the following day and come back up again at the night. And he'd done that. I think it was about 3 months before I come back he got poisoned. Somebody must have laid poison for sheep or something. Dogs worrying sheep. And he got poisoned. But it was a pity because he was a lovely little dog. So.
And what was it about, you were with your Aunt Ellen?
Yeah, Aunt Ellen. And
what was it about living in Edinburgh that you didn't like?
Well, we were living
in... you missed? What?
Well, I never missed it because where we were living in it was the old tenement type blocks. We were living in it, and you had to go upstairs, and then there was walkways on the outside of them. And there was a lot of them then that was damaged during the war, and they were still not repaired, and they were old places. Funny thing is, I used to have a lot of reoccurring dreams of walking through these old buildings for years after it. After coming back from Scotland, because but I didn't like it because during the holidays there was nothing to do, and being at school, it filled the time in, But when I was off school and had nothing to do, I just couldn't take it.
So you were in the city of Edinburgh.
Yeah, we're in the city of Edinburgh, yeah.
So you must have missed the fields and...
I did. That was one of the things. Even later on in years when I went to England, I was working inside in factories. I just couldn't work inside. I had to get back out. And that was why I ended up as a bus driver, because I had to leave and get out. And I didn't want to, I wasn't too keen on going in the buildings, because I don't know why, it never crossed my mind, but I decided to do that for some reason, and I enjoyed that. It was good for me. I enjoyed it. And we were our own bosses. You went out in the morning, you were your own boss. You'd done the job, nobody bothered you. And it was quite good. So.
Now, just going back, you said when your mother went back to Derry House and you heard a loud noise in the night.
Yeah,
but what actually happened then?
I think she banged the table with her hand to get someone to come in. She must have been feeling whatever happened to her. And she must have died after that, sometime after that, because I remember being taken out and put into another bed that night. So, and I never seen her. I never went back into that room after. I don't think I've been in the room since, and that's gone back. Just telling my kids there today, when we were over there, telling the family, I was showing them the room that she died in, actually. So.
And what do you remember of your grandparents, Andrew and Ellen?
Well, I don't remember. I remember Andrew quite well, because he wasn't a big tall man. Andrew, he was really nice. He was.
What did he look like?
No, he was. He wasn't tall, and I'm a bit. My memory on that is a bit faded. But I used to go back over every year. And I remember him being out around the garden, and I was helping him doing little bits there. But my memory on that is very, very vivid. I've got more memories of my Uncle Dennis, who's still alive. I used to go with him and his wife Maisie up to the hills doing the turf and out putting in hay and doing that. When I would go over off and on, and I used to go fishing over there as well. And
Dennis was saying that as a boy you used to cycle over to Derry House every weekend. Yeah, you
used to cycle over. I'd always go for St. Patrick's Day. Always went. Every St. Patrick's Day I went over there. And then maybe during the summertime I'd go over and spend a fortnight there, or maybe a week in it. But I used to always do it. And
would you ride your bike, or did you have a scooter?
No, just ride the bike.
Would you have to go right down to Milford?
No, there was a boat that used to cross from, where the bridge is now?
Yeah.
There's a boat used to cross over there from Leyhead over to this side of Kerrygart. And we used to go over there on the boat. So we'd go up, wait for the boat to come across, they'd put the bags on the front, row us across, and then they'd do the same in the evening coming back.
So it's Kerrygart on this side, and what was it on the other side?
Leyhead, a place called Leyhead.
How do you spell that?
Leyhead Beg. I don't know now how you spell it. But if you look on the way going back, you'll see it on the side of the road. It's written Leyhead Beg. So if you if you're going over the bridge, before you come over the bridge, you'll see that sign, Leyhead Beg. Right. And that we used to take it, when I was living in Darien, we used to grow some seed potatoes. And that's where we used to have to take them, up to Leyhead, because they used to go on the boat for export from there. So that was one of the things you had. All the Dorians would be there. There was Mick, Bryony, Mickey, Jerry. But Jerry was a postman. He didn't have a lot of time. But we used to be always getting the potatoes ready for the export, and they were all seeds. And believe it or not, to this day, I still know the size of the seeds that we used to do for them. And I still do it from when I'm growing my own stuff now.
Well, when we were in the cemetery today at Fanavolti, there's the tombstone for Mickey and Rosie and Bryony.
Yeah, that's right.
And then there's another one, and there's Michael Dorian, died at the age of 32.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, who was he? Whose son was he?
Jeremiah Dorian's Uncle Jerry and Minnie's son. He got killed in a tractor on Rosie Street. The tractor overturned, and he got killed there.
Right, I think I remember that when Mum got the letter. And then there was Edward Dorian. Was that Jerry and...
That's Eddie. Eddie that was married in Birmingham to Mary Friel.
Oh, that's who
Eddie,
it was.
Eddie Dorian, yeah. He was married to Mary.
And that was
first cousin of mine.
Jerry and Minnie's son.
Jerry and Minnie's son, yeah.
And then it had a Mary Ellen Dorian, who seemed... I think she was 81 when she died. I'm just wondering, she might be a great aunt.
Mary Ellen. Mary Dorian.
Mary Ellen. She was born in 1881.
No, I never heard the name Ellen, but I didn't know Mary Dorian. She was married to a bloke, one of the Swinneys from Callendar, and they lived in Maryhill in Glasgow.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll ask Sheila Maley about that.
Now, whether that's the same Mary Ellen, I don't know if she was called Mary Ellen Dorian or not. No, but Mary Dorian would be Mickey's sister, which would be Giley Dorian's sister as well.
Yes, and she went to live in Scotland.
They were living in Maryhill, I'm sure, because I know when I went over to Scotland first, Rosie wrote to Mary and told her that I'd gone and Mary had come looking for me into Court Bridge, but she didn't find me. But she told me after that Rosie had sent her in to see that I was okay.
Oh, dear. So now, when you went to live with Rosie and Mickey, did you go to Cashel National School?
Yeah. I used to open the school, and I used to open the school in the morning. And when I got a bit older, about 12 or 13, I started working on the land more. If they were doing something, Brownie would come over and say, "Can we have Paddy yet? We're doing a bit of work." Or doing something, Master McGee would say, "Oh, carry on." And I even sold cattle to the master at one time, to the Master McGee. There was two lovely bullocks in the field next to the school, and he bought them off me, Yatska. And then I got a nickname after that from all the kids, because one of the people who used to go around dealing in cattle around Fanny at that time was called Mandy McBride, and I had the nickname Mandy for a while. But I was in a play in Cashel School while I was there, and the play was Culturation in Gaelic, because that part of Fanny is still in the Gaeltacht, believe it or not. And we won first place in Donegal at that play in Kerrygarth. Then we had it in Fanavolti, and the place was packed absolutely. And then the following year, I must have been 15, and I was a priest in that play. And in the next one that we were going to do, he wanted me to be the bishop. I was getting promotion. So anyhow, that play, I wouldn't go back to school. I wouldn't go, and they won the All Ireland Cup for it.
Were you in it as the bishop?
I wouldn't go into. I regretted it after, because he forced me just to go to school for one day just to do it, and I wouldn't do it. So
how old were you when you left school?
14.
And what did you do then? Did you just
working on the land? Always working on the land, doing the turf, doing helping out anything we could, doing the potatoes, looking after the horses and that. And I was enjoying it. I liked it. I liked that type of work. So
yes. Now, but there was Uncle Briney. He was, I'm just thinking, Mum used to talk about the wee house at the back.
Yeah.
And she said there was Winnie and Uni.
Yeah, that was before my time. That was.
Yes, that's right.
Because I heard a story about that at the back of the house. And I'm not sure which one of them was supposed to have died, and they were taking him away and to be buried in that. The other one, he wasn't too well. I remember them telling us that he said, "Well, there he goes. I'll follow him in a fortnight," and he did. I remember them telling the story in the house. So, but the house had actually gone by that time.
Yes.
So
you how old were you? Why did you leave Ireland, and how old were you when you left?
I was about 18 and a half when I left Ireland. You see, the land that had in Cashel, it was what they called glebe land, and they couldn't leave it to me even they wanted to. It couldn't be left to, because that would go to the oldest male on the male side. So I knew that they never could do that. So that's not the reason I left. The reason I left was I had to get a better life for myself. That was one of the reasons. And I remember I left, must have been around the second week in June, and I had enough turf at home for Rosie before I left, all built up outside the house and everything, before I left to go to, and she knew I was going. She always called me wee Paddy, but she used to say I was one of the best workers in the area. Rosie always said that. So. But she was good. Rosie and Mickey were really good, really good.
And Sheila must be more like a sister to you.
Sheila is. I just said that to her the other night.
Yeah.
My sisters are very rare, but I don't meet my own sisters either. So
Yeah.
it's just that way. It's how life
turns out.
How life turns out. Yeah.
So when you left Ireland, where did you go?
I went back. I went to Courtbridge, worked in Courtbridge in steelworks for about 12 months. And I went back and
what brought you there? Was Humphrey there, or why did you go there?
I went there. There's a little story here, and I will tell it. Rosie and Mickey never wanted to see Ballykane been sold, and they always made out that if I went to Birmingham, Humphrey would talk me into selling it. Well, anyhow, I didn't at the time. I went to Scotland, and then I come back, and then I went back to Scotland, then I went to England. And then it was, that'd be in the 50s, but then it was in the 60s. And we did decide to sell it because I was in Birmingham and he was in Birmingham, so it wasn't a matter of talking in, it was a matter of an agreement between him and me. And we did actually divide the money equally between the two of us what come off it. But it took over 20 years to be fit to get everything sorted out. You see, they couldn't find the will, my father's will. Now, the solicitor that was with them told me all about the will, and he explained it to me. Well, then the will was found.
It was found?
It was found in Dublin, and it was found in the 80s, and then it was cleared up. Now, there's something in that will I don't want to record, not yet near, maybe at a later date, but there was things in the will I didn't want recorded, well, not at the moment because Humphrey's still alive, and because what Humphrey done at the time, he deserved every bit that came out, because he did take us out of a bad situation, and that way, to me, he was entitled to every bit that came out of it. So, because he had a rough time as well. His father wasn't what you would call 100% good to him either.
No, he told me about that.
I know he wasn't, and well, I knew about that as well.
Yeah.
So he wasn't 100% good to him. So I think he deserved. He had a hard time, Humphrey. His wife was in the hospital, who had TB, and he had TB. So, and then the kids was with Sheila and your mother down in Salisbury. So he had a hard time of it as well. So, and the two of us have been very close all our lives, myself and Humphrey. So I lived with him for a good while in Birmingham as well before I got married. And then I did take digs after a while because Maureen started expecting Jared and Anne, and after that. So I went to digs after when that happened. So before I got married myself.
But when you first left home when you were 18, you worked in steel. Was that in Scotland or where?
Yeah, that was in Courtbridge. I worked in Courtbridge.
Courtbridge?
Courtbridge. Yeah, and it's just outside Glasgow. So I worked there for the 12 months. I think the company was what the hell was the company again? It was Dundivan Road. Oh, Martin's Dundivan Road, Courtbridge. That was the company.
And then did you go back to Ireland after that?
Yeah, I went back to Rosie's after that, and I went back then to Courtbridge again. I was going out with a girl for about 6 or 7 months there in Scotland. But then I went up to Birmingham, and I fell in with all the Byrnes and that, Humphrey's relations, because there was 3 of us stopping there. There was Josephine, she's dead now, God rest her soul. There was Sadie, and they were all single. We used to go around a lot together, so I soon forgot about what happened in Scotland. Well, I must have been with Humphrey for 2 or 3 years, living there.
Humphrey and Maureen?
Yeah, Humphrey and Maureen.
Where were they living then? Were they on Johnston
They were living in
Street?
8 Johnston Street, yeah.
Yes.
Maureen was a very nice person as well. She was
lovely.
She was very nice.
Okay, we're almost done. So tell me when you met Bridie, your wife.
Well, I met Bridie in the Shamrock Club in Birmingham. We met there, and at the time I was enjoying life, and I wasn't really into any relationship as that.
Yeah.
But then after a while, the two of us used to talk a lot. We'd go home, sit on the wall outside talking for ages. Then we'd go home, and we'd done that must have been going out for 18 months. But we were going out, say, for about maybe 4 or 5 months, even before we began to go into a relationship. But the two of us, it's funny too, the two of us come from much the same background. I was brought up in Cashel, and she was brought up by her aunt in Clare Galway. So but her parents was alive. But the aunt in Clare Galway, she was working on land as well. So the point is, the two of us had an awful lot in common when it come to that. And I mean, she was absolutely brilliant with the kids as well. She worked in Tuam before she went to England. She worked for Philly's Chemist in Tuam. And the owner of Philly's Chemist come from Dunfinagh in Donegal here. And his wife is still alive, and she's over 90. And we went in to see her when we were over, and she knew her as soon as she walked in. So she used to look after their kids. She used to say, some of them in the chemist now, she said, I used to change your napkin. But that's what she was doing. She was looking after kids. Yeah. So when she had her own kids, she was already knew exactly what it was all about.
Yes. So just to end the story, when did you move to Galway from Birmingham?
Well,
I mean, you worked on the buses, did you?
Yeah, worked on the buses for a lot of years. But every time we come home, we used to always visit all our aunts. Yeah. And we used to go down to Gannon's, was one of the aunts. Anyhow, we never expected that we never even thought about it, let's put it that way. And anyhow, one time we were down, and John and Julia was there, and the two of them were sitting in, and they said, if we left you this bit of land, would you accept it? And we said, well, it's not up to us. If you want to leave it to us, we won't turn it down. But we said at the time that we couldn't come back because I would lose too much, because I was paying into a pension at work, and I would lose a lot by doing that. So we said, if you leave it to us, you will have to wait till I'm over 60 before we can come back to build on it. Anyhow, they did took us into the solicitor and they signed over, but unfortunately both of them died before we had time to do it. But then we decided we'd build on it. At first, Bridie wasn't all that keen, but then she did get, and then she came over. Myself and Jim is a civil engineer. He designed the house with Bridie's help, and then we decided in the April. Jim came over in the September and he put in the foundations for it. Then the following April I finished in the February, and in the April we decided to come over, myself, Jim and a bloke called Eamon Lavery. And Eamon was a builder, so we built it between the three of us.
And what year was that?
That was 1999, April 99, and we left in the December 99 with the house practically finished. And then we still had our own house in England, and it cost quite a lot to put that house up, so we ran out of money. So we had to wait then until we got a bit back. Then we started and we finished the house, and then Sandra was living in before we finished it. Sandra and her husband and the two children, and then we went back to England, and we stayed there for. Well, then we come back. We sold the house in England to Andrew, the house we had, and then when we got that money, we finished the house completely off. So, and then Sandra, they designed their own house and built it. Jim also done the building on that. He also got the people in to do it and done all the buying and selling and that. And so he done that as well. So he built the two houses. So. So it finished well in the finish up, like.
Yes.
So
yes.
Sandra's still living there. Both of them are working, and they're quite happy now. So I don't think they'll go back to England, even though he's got no Irish in him whatsoever. His parents are Brummie born and Red, Birmingham born and Red.
Great, Pat. Thank you.
Oh, what I was saying about that was that when Charlie of the Ross died, I don't know if you knew Charlie of the Ross. When he died, he left that land to Charlie Shiels, the young Charlie Shiels. Well, he died when he was only 8, and then Hannah and Cassie, they took. Well, I've been told that they took a case against it. They were going to go to court, so my father allowed it to be sold. And they were supposed to have taken a lot from the house at the time. And my father didn't contest it properly. Well, he didn't contest it at all. Now, that's what I was told, like.
Yeah, that's what Mum told me too.
The other thing was that about the earlier part, I don't know how true that was, that when my father was married to Giley Dorian, that she said she would not come back to Ballakiernan while they were in the house, and they had to leave before Giley would come back.
So I know that Mary Begley lived there because that was your grandfather's second wife.
Yeah.
So were there other Begleys living there as well?
Well, that's what I've been led to believe.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know how true the story is,
Yeah.
but they're the ones that were supposed to have said about what happened that she wouldn't come back until they were moved out of the house. And I think they were moved out at that time, and they didn't like it, so they were supposed to have gone on their knees outside and swore would never have any luck. But Hannah's ground and Cassie's ground, they were given that. That was part of the farm, and there was 25 years on that. If that was claimed back, they would have to get out. But it never was claimed back. And
who would have to claim it back?
Well, my father could have claimed it back, or after he died. If it happened after he died, then whoever the will was left then could have claimed it back. But the thing is, these things never only materialised years later. But that was supposed to be part of it. Now, Humphrey should have told you that because he knows about it. He's a lot older than me.
Yes. No, and I'll ask Humphrey this too. But what you've great uncle, big Uncle Charlie, was that what you called him?
Yeah, Uncle Charlie of the Ross. They had a farm.
Where was the Ross?
The Ross is just as you pass through Ross in a kill. Before you come to a little bridge where you turn round sharp, there's a road goes up there. And there's land up the top there belonging to Charlie. That's why it was Charlie of the Ross. It's near Rossnikill, and that's why they called him Charlie of the Ross. And he died, and then after he died, he left a will to young Charlie Shiels, which I think I'm not sure whether it was one of my mother's sons or was. I don't think it was one of Giley's sons. I don't think Giley had a son called Charlie. I don't know. That's something I don't know.
Wouldn't it have been Patrick, your father's brother?
No,
your brother. No, your father's brother.
No, it wasn't because there wasn't a Charlie.
Oh no, because he died so young. Yeah.
So it was either Charlie's son or it was Bridget's son. Which one of them I don't know. So Humphrey should know that part of it. Yeah,
yes,
he should know which Charlie it was. So.
Yes.
But that's when a lot of problems start. But I know when the Freels, when Aunt Hannah went to Newton, my father had to sign to let them go because they couldn't change the land because it was still on that 25-year thingy from.
We're just about finished. I think we're probably done. Okay, well, thank you, Pat.
Bloody hell, we've been at that for a long time.
I know.
Listen,